that up while they're around. So, draft budget was developed by LU, so we've asked them to come in, much like we did fire department, to come in and talk to us directly about their plan and the budget itself. So I'm going to just turn it over to Scott and John. Welcome, Scott.
Well, good morning. Thank you. We're prepared to answer some of the questions that were provided. I think one of them had to do with resident rate versus non-resident rate, what we have budgeted and what that looks like. I can tell you that as a result of doing that research, that we reviewed the items, not necessarily in the budget, but in the business plan, as a translated business plan. And I can tell you that the rates on make changes on page. Let me go through, and this relates to this should be consistent with budget. And on page 18 of the business, there are 3 rates that were incorrect. The one rate that was $62 changed to $54. There was a rate that I didn't change it. There was a rate that was 52 that went to 44, and there's a rate that went from 40 to 30.
Which ones are?
They are the resident greens fee, April 20th through October 14th.
Okay.
Over the top.
62 and 52.
The proposed rate is what now?
It's the same as, actually it's the same as last year. Both columns will read 54, 44, and 30. So that would be the 5th, 6th, and 7th cells down on page 18. I highlighted them to bring that to your attention. That may, the reason I point to that is that may have brought up that question of what are the rate differences? Because according to the rate plan, the average rate for residents for all this time, weekday, weekend, early morning, evening, afternoon, including the $22 cart fee, is $39.80. That's the average. The average rate for non-resident, including the $22 cart fee, $65.
What?
$65.
65?
65.
18.
It's the $65 rate was the average rate for non-residents. For instance, the rates go as high as $90. There's 85, there's 75, there's 65. The lowest non-resident rate actually is the winter rate, January, February, early March rate, when it actually is the same as the resident rate. $5 includes $20 card. I wanted to mention something too. When John, when we were talking about this, we view the price per round of golf with a cart fee. We don't really care if we get it cart fee or get it if it's a free cart fee and you get it all in greens fees. The difference comes in how it's taxed. And so that combination of greens fees and cart, that's why cart fees can be up, greens fees can be really low, because in a let's say we have a $30 cart fee on April 21st, we have actually a $30 resident greens fee. $22 of that is taxed as a cart, or isn't. $22 of that is tax inclusive of the cart fee, which total $22, and $8 is related to greens. So I'm hoping that then as it relates to the budget template we provided.
Let's not leave the business plan
Okay,
yet.
good.
Okay. Let me draw your attention to page 20. Top of that page there's just some numbers that don't seem to. All of these questions I'm about to ask are based on the fact that you're estimating that the losses for next year are going to be appreciably lower than they are this year. You have a member round increase on this page from 2016 to 17 of 740 rounds. You have a non-member decrease of 968 rounds. But you had, the price changes you just talked about basically establish that, the rounds are even less expensive than they were this year.
Actually, they're the same. They were
So
they were
no. Even so, you're looking at non-member rounds, which are the ones that pay the $65 average, is down 968 rounds from your business. Your member rounds, which is 740, I'm assuming member rounds is people who have bought memberships to the course and they pay a fixed amount of money. So that increase doesn't really necessarily increase the revenue to the organization. So we have an increase in use of the course without any more money, and we have almost 1,000 less rounds of paying customers. Yet we're going to be $60,000 ahead next year of where we are estimated to be at the end of this year. So at a philosophical level, I don't understand how you
That's a
can.
good question.
Okay, now, how do you
I get it.
speak to that?
I'm going to speak boldly about it. Some of it has to do with the settling of the package play issue. I'm not going to claim that a great deal, and John gets this well, but I'm not going to claim that we lost a lot of package play this year because of the management change. But it only had a negative effect package play during the spring. So we expect an improvement to package.
But aren't those non-member rounds?
They are non-member rounds.
Then why are you 1,000 down if you're going to have an increase in that?
Well,
Doesn't make sense to me.
1,000 down in.
You're 968 non-member rounds down in your own estimate. And I just assumed that you just said the package play is non-member rounds.
Right.
So if you're estimating almost 1,000 less rounds of non-members, again, I don't understand how that translates.
Because it's when we get round that translates the difference between $30 and $90. For instance, November was a good. Actually, the rounds came because the package rounds and the growth of package rounds, they are the highest price rounds there are. So that brings dollar round up. And
Scott,
it's really based on
You're not projecting. Some people cannot hear what you're saying,
I'm sorry.
especially the folks
I'm
in
sorry.
the audience.
It's about generating the more highest price rounds. It can be mostly described that discrepancy. I think there's another dynamic. So there is that continued growth and that nurturing of the rounds from package play. So that's part of the game of developing the revenue that we need to operate the club. In the we're projecting an increase in, which is all part of this dynamics. Projecting an increase in member rounds.
Doesn't get you much. How many new members are you talking?
We're planning to add net 10 new members.
Okay, that was
I thought
one
we
of
had agreed before our meeting that we had.
Well, you are correct that number of new members was a discussion, and we were asked to strongly consider whether that represents what we said we were going to do as the new managers of Ocean Pines.
Right, because we went from 143 down to 114, so we're
Right.
trying to recoup stuff.
Right, exactly right. And what we're saying, if I may bounce a little bit to that issue, because I know it's an issue, is that when we sit in meetings and we hear a number of people who say they're going to leave this year because things are not right, we realize we have to create loyalty among those members that are considering leaving. So we don't base it on a stable number, we base it on a trend. Your trend is that anywhere between 20 and 40 members leave every year. So to stop that 20 to 40 members leaving is a gain of average of 30. If we can add 10 to that 30, our situation is we're targeting members. But it's not a measure of just, and that 10 members, and if you think about 10 members, what percentage of growth is that to membership? Well, on 100 members, it's 10%. On 200 members, it's 5%. So there has to be stability, stop the bleeding, develop a trend, and compel loyalty and additional members.
So your net 10 translates to 40 new members minus 30 that left. That's what you mean by net.
Yes. Yes.
Because I was trying to figure out what net 10 meant.
It meant,
Because
okay,
net
that's
10,
fair.
to help you out, net 10 could be, we started at 43. We're well below that now. You know, net 10 could mean we're going to be at 53. What you're telling me is we're going to net out 10 more than we already have, so we're still going to be 30 some high.
Behind.
So, what I'm,
No, that would be,
well,
okay.
we
so-
had 43, we're way below that now.
All right, well, that wouldn't be, so to explain my definition of net,
Okay.
if we subtract the losses and add the gain, we're going to come up with more than 10 members we had last year.
Right now, we have about 114, so we're going to end up.
If it comes down to an example, yes. And the reason that's a high and worthy goal is because of what many of us listen to in what's my value of membership? What do I get? Why am I a member of Ocean?
You're replacing lost members.
Yeah.
In other words, if you average 25 members leaving a year, and you're generating 35 new memberships, your net increase in memberships are 10. So let's use the numbers that we have on the board. If we have 114 members, which I don't know if that's right or wrong, but if we have 114 members and we lose 14 and you bring in 24, we now have 124 members. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
so-
another example.
So let's look at member dues on your front page, and we'll come back to some other numbers. 2014, we had member dues of 183,000. I'm on the page one.
Oh, okay.
Page one. 2014, we were $183,000 in member dues. You are projecting 5,000 more than that. That's 10 people.
Depends how it's made up.
Going back to the other thing I started with, if you have 968 less rounds at $65 average, you've lost $62,000, $69.20. You've lost $63,000 in rounds, and you're going to make it up by charging $25 more to some people. The numbers just aren't working for me, Scott. They just aren't. When you project almost 1,000 less rounds, you would have to literally make up your package play rounds would have to be astronomical because you're still losing 1,000 rounds from what you had before. It just doesn't add up for me.
Let me tell you how we come up with a realistic budget. And it's not rocket science. We know what we did last year. We know how we did it. We're going to have a better year this year because of this, this, and this. Or we're going to have a worse year because of this, this. And you apply dollars to it. and some of the budget template actually works out so that you arrive at what you need to have. It's not scientific. But, so I'm going to go away from the detail and go, I believe you, but I'm going to go to the detail in the budget.
Okay.
And I'm going to go to, I better open my budget. And
We're
I'm
talking about our page 1.
I
You
don't have that. We don't have that.
What do you, budget worksheet, do you have that?
Got use mine.
Thank you. All right, this is, yeah, I'm familiar with this form. So the 2000, I got to make sure my budget years are right. We're in budget year 2016.
Correct.
Yes. We're expecting to generate about $6,100 more in green space. Here's how we're going to do that.
More than one.
More than the actually the forecast, which would be a combination of actual and budget. And that's why it's tricky. Because April's. Let me take a step back and say one other thing. We think and manage on season, and we fit it into your fiscal year. So we think season. On a season basis, we know that May was perfect. Probably not going to do any more rounds or revenue. If we're going to do more rounds and revenue in May, it's because we have those early times of the year, we have a better attitude and a relationship and certainty from the package play big gun. So we think that May can't be upside because of weather, but it can be upside because of package play, revenue, where we get the revenue. That's an analysis of this past year. We also realized when we came to June, we had 18 inches of rain on 23 rain. Something like that. I mean, I'm talking about, it doesn't matter where I talk about southern Pennsylvania or conditions are here. That was the scenario. June was a challenging month and it should be very solid. So we think we can do better in June because of that relationship. We will not experience a June like we did last year. So in perspective, our part of the season should be better. May.
Well, were you?
Yes.
You said there was an issue with associated with rain.
Yes.
And you can do better.
Yes.
Know what the weather's going to be like in June?
No, but it can't get any worse. Yeah.
Oh, lost like 1 day for almost the whole summer last year. Did we lose it where we closed any days? 16 days in May?
Street cleanup?
Or June?
Oh no,
June,
not in May. May was the most ideal month. It was dry. We didn't have rain event. We started irrigation early, and that's a scenario of
Last May, we were 212 rounds, package rounds short.
That's right. I'm saying that those high-priced rounds are going to rebound because of the maintenance of relationships with package play people and the past the uncertainty issue of change match. The board discussions, what was in the public.
It definitely had an effect. I guarantee you. It's not your fault.
Yeah, Bill, well, they didn't start till May 1.
It's not their fault. It was our fault. Definitely.
Well, it's not a matter of, sometimes I'm guilty of not assessing. I care more about analyzing what actually happened. Forget how quite occurred.
No, but when you said May was perfect, I thought you were talking about rounds and weather and everything. But on Toto, you were talking strictly weather.
No, I was talking. May was perfect for providing terrific rounds and revenue of golf. Downside was it's not what we expect to do this May, because we expect a great May, an enhanced relationship with the package play people, and to be able to realize a higher dollar value for the round because of the rate of package.
Now, one of the other things that you mentioned, and I'm curious how you think you're going to do this. You said, in terms of stopping the bleeding,
Yeah.
membership, you said you're going to compel will.
Yeah.
How do you go about compelling will?
By changing the way the members are treated, service, and the value of their membership. All year long. Rightly so, or we heard the message that what value of our members. So we get discount rounds of golf and we pay it. Yeah. Well, so we listened to some of the details. We listened to anything from walking in the AM on weekdays. We also listened to White Left on I can tell you last week, Friday, sitting in the office, we got a membership request, and it said, "What are your prices this year?" And oh yeah, are you allowing AM walk? So that was a direct message to me. I used to be a member. I want to know if I want to come back, and I want to know if I can walk Monday, Thursday. My strong assumption is that if we say, here are rates, and yes, you may walk any time of day. As a member, you may walk any time of day. Not as a package play guy or anybody else. You're a member, you may walk. The guy told me he wanted to be a member. He asked the question. He's concerned about the rates. I think he's going to get past that. But he's not going to be a member unless we walk. I think we're going to get that member, and I'm not sure. That was last Friday. So that's actually one of the things that's not written. We are promoting a walking to members only on Monday through Thursday. Anytime.
But you're still only netting 10 people. Getting back to the numbers and budget,
That's all.
which is what we have to live with, you're still only netting 10 people with all these changes.
We're not going to limit it. If they want, if 50 people in that same category say, I like what they did, I'm coming back.
Of course, you're not going to limit it.
But I'm talking about a budget. I mean, somebody says, we want your budgets and your plans to be realistic. We don't want pie in the sky. We want real numbers. We don't want you to inflate things so we can, so it makes you look good and then you're going to look bad later. We want real things. Why? Because there's a lot of impact to the value of membership. Some of the other things we did to value membership, and actually I have a PowerPoint. I was struggling with that I have, actually it's for tomorrow. And it has to do with those items. All right, what have we done? What have we experienced? And we experienced satisfaction on a lot of levels. Very little was mentioned in price. It's never mentioned in price relating to value. So the question is value. What is our member value? Some of you have actually sat in these meetings when you've heard the same thing. So I know you've heard exactly the same thing. So it's about something, and not one of these things makes a big difference. Maybe to a few of them it does. But we have a business plan to cater and focus on membership. You think that could make a little bit of difference? Because the components of that are member focused, not entirely member focused, but it's not solely about revenue focus. We need to grow memberships. We need to nurture and maintain revenue. So one can't be exclusive from the other. Tee times was a big issue, and actually it's the most challenging issue to resolve to the complete satisfaction of the membership. When we have a group of members that want to the office on Monday morning at 8:30, and we have a chance to increase revenue by holding an event that's guaranteed $33,000 or $4,000, when the flip side is only $200 or $300. You can talk to real numbers better than I can. But let's say it's 3,000 versus 1,000. We're going to try to figure out how to capture that 3,000, keep the members happy, try to accomplish every way we can. Not because we're going to accommodate because we need the revenue. That's just the same.
At the end of the day, we have to work off of the business plan you handed us.
Right.
You're telling us we're going to get 10 net new people.
Yeah.
All of this that you're talking about is wonderful. It makes all the sense in the world. But it's still only 10 people. The numbers aren't making sense. You can't lose 1,000 rounds of non-member income. You can't do it and end up with more revenue, which is what you were projecting here. You have a page, you have a number of rounds for member rounds on page 29 that doesn't line up with the number of member rounds you've got on page 20.
I made that adjustment by
Okay?
120.
Yeah, it's off by 120. I mean, it is. Let me just share with you.
I understand.
I've been through this now for 5 years. Okay? Every year we go through the same dance of how good things are going to be. Reality is we came in a $100,000 projected loss for this particular fiscal year was accepted as being, well, that's more than, we're missing it by 40%. We're at $140,000 lost forecast for the end of this fiscal, according to this page. Okay? You are now improving over the end of projection for this fiscal year. Instead of losing 141,000, you're saying lose 83. The only place I see where you are doing and even coming close to being able to achieve that is the amount of lack of maintenance that you're going to do budgetarily, which is a rather sizable $40,000 difference. Adding to the difference between this year and next year, it's close to 70 grand and less maintenance than we have paid before. So I have two very obviously concerns. At the end of the day, we have got to establish a budget for golf that, and I'm gonna, it's got to be bold here, tells the truth to the members of our organization of where golf is going to end up. Because we had overpromise and underdeliver for years. Okay? And that's my concern with this number of 83. Because this number of 83, 100 was put in last year's assessment level. We missed it by 40%. We put 83 in now. Based on what? Which I still haven't heard because the numbers they really don't add up. When you have less paying rounds, almost 1,000 less than we had this year. And at the end, it all comes down to me, from what I can say, it comes down to cutting maintenance, which is exactly what a lot of people were concerned about. That a lot of times the only way you make money in golf is starting to cut maintenance. And you start cutting by multiples of 10,000s, which is what you're projecting to do, if you look at the numbers here. At the end, this board has got to establish this number for golf to where it's reasonable so that our members don't, at the end of the day, they understand what's really going to happen. As I said, for 4.5 years, it was overpromise, underdeliver. I don't want that with LU. I would rather put a budget here that says, let's be reasonable where we're going to end up. Put that number into the assessment. It's in the assessment. It's more honest, quite frankly, to our members to put a number here that is realistic. And I don't see, and obviously I've read every word that's here and studied the numbers and compared them. I don't see here how you get to 83, because number one, I can't see where you get your revenue, because you're only adding 10 members, and your paying rounds are down almost 1,000, and your budget for maintenance is appreciably lower. It's down $41,000.
From actual or budget?
It's from actual.
Wrong.
Well,
That is a projection of actual,
okay.
and it doesn't.
Well, it's even worse than from budget. It's $70,000 versus budget last year.
Here's I understand. I understand exactly what you're saying, and
Okay.
it's exactly those reasons that produced this budget.
Okay. I don't see where the number comes from.
Rusty hasn't spent the budget for how many years? Anyone know? He hasn't spent that 740 ever. If you used to spend 740, you were spending way too much money. We're wasting money.
It was a $17,000 credit last year on an expense item. $17,000 credit.
Can we have LU do their presentation, please?
So I actually didn't know what to prepare. I knew there were going to be questions, and I actually thought this was going to be one of them. We're not. Here's the way the business golf maintenance works. We have a budget of $679,000 or $678,000. If Rusty McGlenny can't find $8,000 this year to spend less than last year, when I know that I can easily do 3 times that much, we got the wrong guy. All right, I'm just going to tell you the way it is. We're spending too much money maintenance. More than 50 cents of every dollar that comes in gets spent on maintenance. We are not in spending maintenance. Was anybody displeased with the maintenance this year? I asked that question several times. Who was displeased with the golf? I actually was displeased with the golf course. Nobody said they were displeased. I thought it was actually, when I saw those pockets of water around the sunken sprinkler heads, I didn't know it was golf. That cost us revenue. That cost us revenue because we couldn't put carts on the golf cart path. When you don't get carts off the golf cart path, and you can't get carts off the golf cart path, you lose revenue. That's why I said that was going to be the number one thing that we're going to correct on the golf course so we can generate revenue by adding golfers who want to get off the carts, who won't play any other way, and so we can satisfy the elderly members so that they can receive better value in their membership. That's a comprehensive plan about getting carts off the golf course. That's why we introduced the flags, where it's still up to Rusty. I'm not telling you when to put the carts off. I'm saying that if we prepare a golf course and focus on the things that will make a better golf course, that will make members accessible to the golf course with carts when they want it more often, and golfers at the $60 and $70 rate more often, they're going to come here because they can go other. So every time you put another level of golf cart path restriction, you lose revenue, whether it's from members or daily fee. It's a fact across the nation that's built into this plan. We need to pay attention more than trees. That's why there are 2 major components I think I wrote. The main focus is to correct those sunken sprinkler heads that when there was the driest period of the year, you didn't, and sprinkler heads are always running. There's a lot of water. The water collected in a 10-foot circle. The golf cars and utility and maintenance vehicles would run through that area. Rusty said that the first thing on his day was to repair the ruts from that squishy soil. We want to eliminate that. He can't spend time repairing ruts. He's got to spend time doing other things. Or we save. That's how efficiency is. That's how golf course maintenance. I stand by that number. We've never. We spend way less than that at renditions. Just give me an idea. You have much larger greens. We have much larger fairways. Okay, so there's a perspective that I have from this is a different golf course. It's treated as a special golf course. It's not like renditions. We don't treat any place else like renditions. But it is a perspective. It is when we have fairway units at renditions that have 4,800 hours on 3 of them. And when a superintendent asks to have his fairway units replaced that has 1,800 hours on it, I say that is not using the life of $160,000 work. That's why I push back to Rusty. Rusty, you got to figure out how to get more life out of that. We can't afford to spend that cart fleet. because that lends to generating revenue. So and that's part of that's the whole thing. But regarding maintenance, we're planning to spend about $5,000 to $8,000 less than the average that was spent in the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons actually, if you include this season 10. There was a time when Rusty said it was for the November budget. We're looking at October's, and I said, Rusty, how are you going to spend that money that's budgeted due in November? And I don't know who was in the room. It was John, and he might have said the same thing to Bob in a meeting, and that was, I don't know how to spend that much money. They put it in there because they knew that people didn't want to spend less money in the maintenance. That's a budget item, but in reality, they always spend less. And he should. It's just that simple. I'm not backing off that number. And there's no reason to spend that much money on this golf course to produce the revenue and the price point that we need. None. There just isn't. Are there deficiencies with the golf course? Yes. Do they need to be covered under some other item, whether it's drainage or rebuilding this, that? Yeah, that's a consideration. That's not me. It's something different. I get a little animated with that because I know what you're looking for. We were to listen very carefully what you're looking for. It's why we took that concept of adding 32 members and said, no, 10 members is right. You wanted real numbers and real thinking? That's what it is. Now, let me go to the revenue generation. You know, this is the first year that I shouldn't say that. I don't know what I'm talking about in that area. But let's look at the number we're projecting, the top number. Did we say we're going to produce $1,508,000 like last year was projected? That's what was projected.
Actually, you did because you accepted the $100,000 lost budget.
No, I'm just talking about revenue. I'm just talking about top line. The revenue that was budgeted for 2016.
16. It was 1.5.
A little over 1.5.
I'm never right at it. Yeah.
Okay, 1.508. All right, so my memory is. So why didn't we project 1.0508? Because you received an unrealistic budget. You received a budget that it could have been done. There's no basis for it. There's no business plan. Now, I don't even see the business, but the question is, why are we proposing a budget of 1.391? And some of it comes down to this. I don't mind exceeding budget, but why would we produce a budget of 1.5 no produce revenue?
You are still projecting a $32,000 increase over forecast for this year. And I go back to it again, and you're 1,000 rounds under outside play.
If we can, I'm going to say it. I'm trying to get off the detail of how many rounds and revenue per round, because that's actually not how we budget. All I know is.
So this doesn't mean anything.
It absolutely means. You know what?
This doesn't mean anything.
That means that is what the budget says. Of course, it means something. Of course, it means something. And the point is, here we have greens fees. Okay, last year the budget for greens fees alone was $479,290. We're saying, no, we think we can do $420.
Okay. I'm not arguing against. I'm simply saying that you gave us this business plan to read. I read it word for word. I looked at the numbers. I keep bringing it up, and I still haven't heard an answer as to how you increase revenue by $32,000 when you've lost 1,000 rounds from outside play. How do you do that? Because the numbers aren't working.
I actually did answer the question, but I do understand. It
No, I
depends
don't think you
when.
did.
Well, it depends when those rounds were realized last year compared to when we're promoting the rounds to be realized this year. It's just
It is 12 months.
but it's a
Tom,
no.
talking a long time.
Tom, it's a two-way conversation here. I got a point to make, and you made an excellent point in that you said 5 years we've been suffering with this disappointment,
Right.
and I agree, 100%. That's why we came to a conclusion as to we have to change something.
That's where we are.
Right, wrong, or indifferent.
That's where we are.
That's where we are. Correct.
That's not
Correct.
right.
The object that I'm hearing from this man is that we were dealing with unrealistic numbers. That they were projecting Pollyannish types of production that never materialized. And we lost 317,000, 288,000, 536,000, 326,000, and then they turned the corner by cutting their maintenance fees the following year. And this particular outfit said, okay, we'll adopt their budget this year, and we'll work with it as best we can. But next year we'll present our own budget. So that's what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing their realistic expectation of what they can do. Now, I mean, we hire.
I'm not expecting, hey Jack, I'm not expecting
we
them to
hire
say
a golf
they're going to
manager,
do better.
and we ask the golf manager to manage
I
to the
understand.
best of their ability. So what he's saying is that we will get more, and this is what I'm getting out of it, we will get more $65 and $90 rounds than we have in the past. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
That is correct. To the tune of $32,000, I don't think I can make it that case in 65 and 35, but it won't be so much level to the 25 and 45. So I understand. The answer is yes. That's an example.
Okay, Tom?
Actually, I want to make.
No,
I want to make.
I'm sorry, guys. You can't multiply 968 rounds by 65 and then say you're going to make that up by selling $90 rounds, which is only the rounds are the rounds. You're down 968 rounds.
Okay, I will adjust the rounds so that they go to the revenue that we are going. I'm not doing. No.
That's interesting.
No. Not only is it interesting, it's how we do it everywhere. It's how Billy Castle golf. When I say it's not rocket science, we have a. If everything's related to rounds, you know what? If I how should I say that? I'll use the premise that there's no reason not to expect to produce the same revenue. Can we agree? In Greensleeve, I go back to that scenario. What would cause us to produce? Forget who pays what on Thursday evenings and all this. Are we going to be able to produce the same revenue in Greensleeve this coming year as last year? And May was perfect. June was terrible. There was some fuss in between. We were closed. I forget if it was October 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. We lost the prime time. We lost the prime time golf package. We lost probably 150, 200 rounds of the $90 fees in October. The first 3 days of October we were closed. Cleaned up 19 trees in the golf. So that's a very clear recollection. That happened in the primest prime time. That's all prime time. So the idea is evaluate the season and say, whoa, that's maxed out. We are not going to run any more rounds, and we think that this revenue this year is going to be really hard to beat. This is where I'm not calling it rocket science. I'm not doing modification. I'm saying that, yes, there's no reason to think at every one of our properties on the East Coast this year that we're going to equal the revenue last year in Greensleeve. And we think we can do better, and here's why. That's not rocket science. That's how you come up with that number. And all the rounds and all the revenue for rounds and all the templates that are built for that are based on that number. I don't know.
Now,
what to say.
Tom, let me ask the question.
Mhm.
I mean, 968 rounds. Okay. If you charge $10 a round, you collect $10 a round, and that can happen two ways: by increasing rates or getting prime rates or both. focusing on getting the prime rates are different. That comes out to $9,680. Look at the difference between what they forecasted, Green's fees, and what this year's forecast.
Let me give you what the numbers are. You take $65 times 968, you lost 62,920. If every single one of those rounds was replaced by a $90 round, you make $87,120, which means you have to have a $150,000 turnaround to net your 87, because you got a minus 62 and a plus 87.
That's what the math says.
That's what you're talking about. It's
No,
150.
no, actually, what I'm talking about, Tom, I understand. I understand formulas. I actually, mathematics is my best subject. I love history. So, but I'm trying to get away from the detail of what you read in the business plan, which should be consistent, but no question should. And that actually is available.
Okay. Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
The valid point is the business plan correlates to the numbers in the budget. It's why our business plan, the way we write it, is actually really, every time you change a business, or the budget, you got to change the business. So I want to go back to the increasing revenue by $7,100 in Greens. That's all I can say. When I can say, and I don't care if we do that with 30,000 rounds or 35,000. We are going to beat the Greens fee budget. We're going to beat it by much. And the reason I say we're not going to beat it by much is I don't want to get pie in the sky, and I want to give you a real number. And this is the way we do it with our own property. Everything we apply here is what we do the experiment on our property. Take it up. Don't reinvent the wheel. That's a number. It's not pie in the sky. That's 420, and that's what I'm trying to look at. And I am trying to not look at the inconsistencies. How do you come up with 1,000 rounds less? But I understand it's written there, and you have a valid point.
It's written there, and
it's in there, and I wrote it, and I'm not changing the numbers though. I'd rather change the business plan.
Again, it's a
Cart rentals. In fact, if you look
cart
at
rentals are down.
well, cart
Are actual.
and I don't expect them to be down in reality.
Okay.
But that's the way the budget's set up. Because otherwise, if we don't use a formula, there's no basis for the number. So we use a formula to show the basis for the number. So in the end, who thinks we wouldn't do $457,000 purchase? It's pretty. It's not an anomaly. It's not even hard to explain. When we say we're going to do, we actually are saying we're going to do less in driving range. Frankly, that should be an area we should be able to do. We should be able to promote that driving range with that new netting from both ends. We should have a program that attracts more range-only members, community practicers, or people that are planning to go any place from outside the community. We should be able to attract to that range. And yet, that's a complex thing to do, but we should be able to grow that up. Because you have nice practice. Yeah. Members' dues. This is basically showing you were telling me that growing members doesn't have a lot of revenue. Well, that's true. But it doesn't come from there's probably an equal, if you think about it, amount of revenue coming from food and beverage and merchandise and cart fees than there does just some of those member fees are cart pass, 19, 21 cart pass would buy a lump sum.
Well,
So
part of the
it's
member
in
dues and the net increase, whatever it is, 10 members, that difference, $20,000.
All right, is 24.
You're up 24 grand round figure.
Yeah, actually, that forecast is a moving target. We did this budget in August and September and finalized it in mid-October. I think we came out of the November 5th meeting with that, so that's a little bit of a moving target. But yes, that's 188, 170. relates to cart and member dues, and yes, I have to be able to say that.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So it
Now,
looks like we're level with the other years. Look back 2011 through 2011 way up, so it drops down to 180, 189, 188, 170. Then and now back to 80. Looks like we're back.
yeah. Let me. Well, it's that stop the bleeding kind of thought.
Stop.
And it's a little bit of, and here's why I said it. Remember I said we're thinking seasons and not fiscal year. We think that there's a stability coming to membership, maybe some growth in membership to the end of this current fiscal year. Because it's coming. I wouldn't expect people in March to say, well, they have to have experienced some changes and increase and at least have to be excited about what's coming to membership. But we actually haven't proven that. There's not a lot of proven time there. It's why we have frankly, it's why we have the continuity of popcorn night or we're going to have something in February to try to get that continuity of membership, to try to see them what's to come. We've coordinated, I don't think anybody's from that committee, but coordinated in this club there were clubs within a club. Okay, we call it the country club, and yet within that club we had men's golf association. They were running their club in club, and they were sending membership information. They were sending their activity, and John was accommodating that activity. Okay, now that's actually what the members were planning, running their own events, and we were accommodating whatever they wanted
And I
to do.
believe that change has been made. Let me get back to the numbers here.
Yes, could I finish that? Just sure. What I'm saying is, if we have the opportunity to prove that, we think that some of that upside membership comes to 2016, and because I wouldn't expect somebody not to join in April and then decide to join in May. I would expect them to actually join it, which will boost a little bit.
You're talking
Is
about
that
10
when
new
you say the
members.
season starts? From
Well,
our perspective, it's
yeah.
April to.
Well, yes. Whenever the golf season starts, it actually the membership season actually starts when people are considering club to join. If they're considering, do I change? There are members who've already decided I'm not joining this year, or I'm going to give it. So what we're trying to have is that communication that this year we're going to actually treat you like we're going to try to coordinate the operations of members as though we were a private club. You go to any private club, don't run that golf. You better do it the opposite. The golf profession provides the fun, the platform, and all that thing, coordinates it, and membership.
One of the concerns of the Budget and Finance Committee and one of the plan and numbers is that they could not identify certain labor costs.
Okay.
If you look at this grid, the grid you'll see in budget 16 0 and LU's 0. Where are your labor costs?
Actually, didn't I get that question
Under
answered?
operating.
Oh yeah, it's all. We don't separate it out. But I think did I give that to you, Art? You asked me for that on December 11th or 21st or something like that.
Yeah.
I think I broke it out.
For FTE purposes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all combined down in here.
So what I'm hearing you guys say, as best my hearing aids can produce, is that labor costs are in pro shop, operating expenses in the general administration, operating expenses. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So even though the labor costs are folded into those particular areas, those expenses are down. I'm comparing 204 2016 budget to 157 for your budget, which is a 47,000 negative delta. Are you? Is that personnel driven? Is that what that is?
Some of it.
So you are running the operation with adequate personnel, or are you running below staff, or what are you doing? Is your personnel adequate? John could probably answer that better.
I'd like to have him answer this question about one and have hot soup and stuff back there and lunch. So after this question, let's take a break.
They're staying, right?
Okay.
And we're going to come back.
The best way I can answer. All right. So when we have a budget of 157,712, we're looking at a comparison of what our projection is under our budget template. We're looking at the forecast for that department, all inclusive for the end of the year. I think that's actually.
And that includes labor.
That includes labor. Now,
Personnel.
that's right. Now, some of what happened this year. Here's the forecast. That included 2 golf professionals. That included Scott Lennox. Well, that's the old budget. That's the golf budget. It included a different pay scale, 4 golf professional, and frankly included 1 additional golf professional. There was. Oops. Went to Texas.
Oh,
Zach. Why can't I think Zach? Okay, so Zach and Scott Lennox were basically paid at a higher rate than what Tyler. So we're from 3 to 2 in professional one, and at a lower rate.
Was that your question, Jack? I think they more or less had a problem with what is it? You know, what is in this category, because they couldn't tell what was marketing, where was that. That's mainly the problem that they had. Was break it out so we can see what marketing.
Yeah, I mean, is that possible? I think it makes it a little bit easier for everyone to absorb. You know what I mean? In other words, Bill's dead on. What I'm hearing you say is that $204,000 represented the cost of the previous manager's labor and expenses for that category. Correct? Okay. And $157,000 represents your budget number, including labor and other incidental expenses within that category. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So you explain that away by saying either you've made some adjustments in staff, either by number, or those guys moved on to better opportunities, and the people that you're bringing on board now work at a lower pay scale. Is that correct?
That is correct. Although I feel less certain about that 204, 339.
It's not your number.
That's not my number, but it's.
That was a budget.
Yeah, that was budget. And the
Your number's one.
But the point that Bill's raising is, the point that I'm trying to get to is that when you look at your presentation, because we're so used to seeing it a certain way, that you don't break out the labor, and people can't get their arms around it. You don't break out the specific market cost. They can't get their arms.
Yes, we package it a different way. That is correct. What I'm doing right now is I'm pulling up the to give you an idea of how we do this. You know, a budget's got to make sense compared to what we did last year. Not according to the previous budget, but what we actually did last year. That's when it really makes sense. So to give you an idea, our projection in Golf Shop, that we will actually end up spending $161,301. And not $178,705.
Oh, you're talking about this fiscal year.
This fiscal year. But and
now
so
you change.
so
It's
now,
their latest.
Okay.
so
So your loss at 141, this projected loss at 141. Correct.
I don't. Frankly, I've never seen that number before. But
Okay.
I actually don't know. But I do
The
know.
numbers came from you. So.
Well, no, yes, but packaged this way And that's how we work with Art. So I do know that there was an $18,535 hit to EBITDA, to earnings, just as a Art. Can you explain it?
Well, it has to do with the prior year entries with BCG. Intercompanies.
I mean, if 141 is going to become 120 something, then you're 40,000. Look, before we go to lunch, I want you to think about something as we're going to lunch so you can answer it. I'm just looking at pages 18 and 19, which is the prices of the product, and the only changes you made were up above in the daily rounds. The memberships for a family are $2,300, except for associate family, which is $2,500. All these other memberships are $1,300, $875, whatever, and you're $24,000 better with 10 members. I mean, if you just look at the membership dues line, 188 versus 164, you're improving by $24,000, but the membership rates are like $1,400 or $1,500 a piece.
But it also depends on what kind of membership.
That's fine. I just want you to think about that so we can go back. You can answer it. Because that, again, the math is not adding up.
No, Tom's right. If the math doesn't add up, my explanation is actually point like this. We don't use that math to come up with these numbers. And yet, we represent, I know that'd be frustrating to you,
Okay.
but that's reality. And it's just, those are the real answer.
We got to live in reality here. We got to be able to speak.
We got to live with the reality.
That was
See,
we
lunch.
have to send that to Tom Herrick. Well, all right, Tom, all right.
So, I feel like,
Let's take a lunch
break.
I feel like there's a lot of loose
Take a lunch break.
Okay.
We got to settle.
Travis, grab a sandwich. Enjoy yourself.
All right, thank you.
I just kind of